In Egypt, tens of thousands of protesters, both supporters and opponents of Egypt's deposed President Mohamed Morsi, have been holding mass protests in the capital of Cairo and other cities across the country. For more on the tense situation in Egypt, let's bring in Edwin Smith. He's a professor at the University of Southern California and the co-author of the United Nations in a New World Order. Thank you so much for joining us. Your sense on what it's going to take to restore calm there?
Thank you very much for having me. I think it's a very difficult situation. We have a government, Morsi's government, which was elected in a campaign that actually did not include the full range of opinion. Certain parties decided not to participate, but it was an elected government, and the U.S. approved the election as a valid election. Now the population has rejected the policies that the Morsi government undertook. Basically, the government became a dictatorial government. And the demonstrations, the popular demonstrations, were rejection of the kind of government that Morsi had in place. The army came in when the Morsi government refused to react to the population. Now Morsi's party is also demonstrating to have him put back into power. So it's a very complicated situation.
It is indeed, and here in Washington, D.C., the Obama administration has to be watching this with cautious eyes. Any suggestions on what they should do, or should they stay on the sidelines, let the Egyptians sort this thing out?
Well, I think they really have no choice but to stay on the sidelines. There are concerns that the United States has. One of the concerns is that the Constitution that Morsi's party put into place without the cooperation of other opposition parties in the Egyptian government really did not respect the rights of women. It did not respect the rights of minorities. And the U.S. government would be concerned about the treatment of those parties. Of course, the U.S. government is in favor of a popularly elected and accepted government. Some commentators this morning suggested that it may be necessary to use the U.S. Financial assistance to Egypt and place conditions upon it in order to move the Egyptian government in directions that allow inclusion of all parties.
There's also been this debate. There had been, it seemed like everyone was in agreement about a new premier, and then all of that collapsed. If they can't agree on something like that moving forward, you know, putting this thing together in terms of just an interim government before elections, that might be dicey as well, don't you think?
So some have said precisely that. Al-Baradei was named to be the new prime minister after the army very quickly established a civilian panel to establish a new government. And they agreed on Al-Baradei, who had been head of the International Atomic Energy Agency. But it turned out that the one Islamic fundamentalist group that was involved in this selection panel rejected Al-Baradei as the prime minister, and that brought the whole process to a screeching halt. I heard one commentator said he did not understand how it would be possible to find a party upon which all sides could agree.
What about the other thing that comes to mind, for me at least, is if they do have, if they can expedite the elections and have another democratically elected president, I would think that if you are elected, you'd be looking over your shoulder the whole time, wondering if you take the wrong step, that the military might jump in again. How difficult will it be to govern in Egypt following this crisis?
Well, it's not so much the military, and the military was averse to stepping in. In fact, the military told Morsi that he should respond to the popular demonstrations. And there were some estimated 20 million Egyptians that were opposed to what Morsi's government was doing. The army came in to avoid conflicts, physical conflicts between the Morsi supporters and the Morsi opponents. So it's not so much the army that a new government would have to worry about, but it is the kind of popular uprising, popular demonstration that would have brought the Morsi government down, which would be the thing a new government would have to look at. One of the problems that you face in this situation is that you have no way to constitutionally challenge an existing government. That's one of the problems with the Constitution that the Morsi government put together. It is the reason why we have a process of impeachment. Some have suggested that this is effectively a popular impeachment of the Morsi government, but you can't do it through street demonstrations.
Edwin, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us with your analysis from Los Angeles. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, absolutely.